Welcome back. You join me in the Scottish Western Isles, also known as the Outer Hebrides. I'm on the Hebridean Way, which promises beautiful beaches, scenic views, loads of causeways and maybe even some otters. But as you can see today, in typical Scottish fashion, I'm starting in the rain and the wind. So there's a start point there where I was. There's a cafe here, so I thought I'd come get a coffee. And look at that, a bit of cake before I get started. The Hebridean Way visits 9 islands. Some are linked via causeways, but some of them you have to get ferries. I think there's 2 ferry crossings when you're on the way. First one for me is at the end of this section, but some of the locals were telling me it might not run because the wind's due to pick up. So I might be stranded on this island, which is Barra. I'm on Barra at the moment. I sailed into Castle Bay, which is over there. You can't see it. And then I got the bus this morning to Wattersee, which is the starting point. And now I'm walking to Ardvour, which is where the ferry takes me to Eriskay. So that's what I'm doing today. So there's the remnants of a plane that crashed here in 1944, just a kilometre into the route. It says, in memory of the men who died and survived when their Catalina plane crashed from Wattersee on the 12th of May 1944. And the plane has been, well, parts of the plane have been left here for 80 years.
Although it was summer, you couldn't tell. Everything was shrouded in a thick mist. It was making me apprehensive about the journey ahead.
That dog's got the right idea, staying inside where it's dry. Beautifully clear water, at least. If the sun was shining, I could maybe even go for a dip. So before that causeway was built, cattle on this side had to swim over. It was 250 metres, so quite a long swim. And in 1986, a prize bull called Bernie drowned while attempting to swim over. And after that, they built the causeway which links Wattersee with Barra, and it was completed in 1991.
I made my way down to the water for a closer look. I couldn't see any fish, but the water was very, very clear.
The official route is up there into the hills, but I don't know if I want to do that because I'm not going to have any visibility. It'll be wet, muddy, and I'll probably fall on my backside, and it'll generally be quite bleak, so I might just stay on the road for this section because it inevitably links back onto the road anyway, so yeah. If I'd taken the high route back there, there are sections where you have to go through pathless heather, and I'm in shorts, so can't be bothered with that, just get wet feet, so I'll stay on the road. If it was sunny and I could see things, and I could get nice photos from up there, I would go, but if it's just going to be miserable, what's the point? I'm meant to be enjoying myself, not suffering. So that's where the high route is, up there. Obviously can't see a thing, so I am glad I stayed lower down. It's absolutely bucketing it down. Just came into this church to put our waterproofs on before I continue for the ferry. I'm a bit concerned I'm going to miss it, but I have to get a shift on.
Thankfully, I made it in time for the ferry, even if I was soaking wet. I had a quick bite to eat, then boarded for the crossing over to the next stage of the trail.
Just off the ferry and I came into this church because I knew it'd be open. It was a bit of respite from that weather and that wind and that rain. But I've booked a hostel tonight. I've gave in, there's no way I'm camping in that. So got about another 5 kilometres to go, I think, and then get a nice warm shower and a bed. So yeah, a bit disappointing, but hopefully tomorrow will be better. Shoes are absolutely soaked through. My socks, my feet, everything. blowing a gale. So I'm back on the road, I think I've got about 3 or 4 kilometres to get to the hostel. A nice hot shower. The priest in there was actually very nice. He spoke to me for a while, offered to give me a lift to the hostel, but I said no, I'll just walk. But yeah, glad I stopped in there. Just coming up to the famous causeway on Eriskay. I think it's about a mile long. Hope it's not longer than that. There's a couple out there struggling to get the tent up. There's no way I'd be able to pitch that Z-Packs in that wind on my own. This is far too light. So here we are. £35, buzzing with this. Shower, food, maybe watch some TV. Unfortunately, they've been defeated. The tent is going back into the car. Got a room to myself, which is great. Hanging up my stuff to dry. Got a nice shower. So yeah, gonna grab a shower, grab some food, and probably have an early night.
It was great to get into the comfortable bed. I could still hear the wind howling outside. It didn't stop me falling asleep though.
Day 2, and it's still exceptionally windy. But it's not raining at least, so small mercies. I've not long left the hostel. What a place. Yeah, really happy I stayed there. Had a drying room, the people in there were friendly, the other residents or guests offered me some fajitas for dinner, had a good chat. So yeah, I'm very glad I stayed there actually. I'd recommend it. West Kilbride Hostel it's called. I don't think I'll film much today because my tripod for my phone just blows over in the wind and it's just a bit of a pain in the neck. So I'm just going to get my head down and crack on and hope that the wind eases at some stage today.
I continued on the route, stopping to take in some of the sights and to admire the scenery of the islands. I could already tell they were steeped in history. It was a very ancient place.
These guys don't seem to mind the wind. Obviously made of hardier stuff than me.
Before long, I was making my way along the famous Hebridean beaches.
I can't believe how beautiful the beaches are. The sand is just so white. Even though it's windy, it's still, it's just incredible, these beaches. This is what I came for. This is why I came to Outer Hebrides.
Not long past the beach, I reached the hostel where I would be staying for the night.
This is where I'm staying tonight, the Gatliff Hostel. Got a toilet, shower, and rooms in there. Out the wind, means I don't need to pitch my tent. There's a kitchen and a little lounge area next door. It'll be nice and cosy in here, and there's power as well, which is always nice.
Which means that my bike booking on the later train. So I don't think they're usually. They say they're not usually.
Before long, I was meeting the other guests and using the fire to dry out my wet socks. After dinner, it was time to turn in for the night and get some sleep.
That was another great wee hostel. £20 that was. That was it. There's 2 people in there. We were talking all evening, sharing stories. Guy was giving me some of his lager. Had a nice chilled morning. The wind has finally dropped. Thank God. So we continue on. Day 3. I assumed the Hebrides would be generally quite flat, but there seems to be some decent sized peaks. I'll not be going up them though. Staying to the low route.
There's a saying in the Western Isles, it's a good day to hang out the washing. I was starting to understand what it meant.
That's a defence organisation, Kinetic they're called, and they'll launch missiles into the Atlantic Ocean from this island. That's a little radar base. The launch area is further north. The key to keeping your feet dry when you're walking through the bog is to bring some Crocs. When the ground gets a bit better, I'll put my shoes back on. I think once I get over that bridge, the path is on gravel and the bog's finished. So I'll clean my feet in there, put my shoes back on, and continue on. I'm not tall enough.
After escaping the bog, and with my dry shoes back on, I continued my journey.
It's a cool, disused quarry, filled with water. Be nice to swim in, but it's filled with junk. People fly tipping. Terrible, look at that. That TV, looks like it's from the 1980s. Just filled with crap that people should be recycling or putting in the bin, so they're just dumping it in the water.
Soon, I was reaching the island of Benbecula. My tripod was not doing well in the wind.
Just making my way along another deserted beach. Nobody in sight. The wind is picking up again. Been listening to a podcast most of today, just head down, cracking on. Yeah, so far, a bit disappointed. Not the experience I'd expected when I was coming here, but yeah, we continue on. Got to remain positive, or try to.
I'm in another hostel. I feel like a bit of a wimp not camping, but when they're so cheap and the guidebook recommends them, and it's nice to get a shower and a comfy bed at the end of each day, so yeah, why not? I don't regret it, I don't feel bad. even though I've got my tent in my bag. I'm sure I'll camp some of the nights, but tonight I'm happy to be here because it was a long day. Just, you can see how red I am just from the wind and the sun, and yeah. Don't know what to think of this route, really. You know, you come off the road to then go through bog land and moorland to just come back onto the road. So there's quite a lot of sections like that. It's just a bit annoying. I think you're better just staying on the road, keep your feet dry. I'm actually the only person in the hostel tonight, so I've got the whole place to myself, which is nice. Just having a little 3-course meal, soup, chili mac with beef, then some rice pudding, and I'm going to watch some TV. Today's route, for example, you start there at the hostel, you walk down the track, you turn right, and then you come to the road, but instead of just turning left and going on the road, you go across it into this section, which is just all waterlogged. It's all boggy and pathless in sections. So you go out and you come back simply to join the road, and then you stay on the road for a little bit before you come off the road again to go on all this bit out here, which is absolutely waterlogged, as you can tell. I mean, there's water everywhere there, so it's soaking. And then you go out there, you go quite far out just to come back all the way and join the road. So if you just stayed on the road, you would cut out all the waterlogged bits, keep your feet dry, and it would be quicker. And there's not really much to see out here either. I mean, if you were getting good views and stuff, I could understand it, but today I wish I'd just stuck on the road. So in the future sections in the coming days, if there's more areas like this, I might just stay on the road instead of going out to all this bit with these type of bits, because I can't be bothered.
Once again, I was ending the day in a bunk bed. This was not what I had planned for the route, but I couldn't complain.
Day 4 on the Hebridean Way. Well, I'm actually off the way at the moment because I need to go to that shop to resupply. But I've made the decision today, I'm not going into any marshland, bog, wet, horrible area. I'm going to stay on the road because it's going to rain heavily today and I can't be bothered being in the bog. Outer Hebrides food trail. I like the sound of that. 100 yards on the left, a bakery.
Very tasty.
After leaving the distillery, I was left with no choice but to continue on. The weather was starting to wear me down.
A nice thing about the Outer Hebrides is a lot of the buildings are left open. So it's a village hall that I walked past and I thought I'll come see if it's open, and it is, so I can have a little break, get myself a cup of tea, dry off and decide what I'm going to do, where I'm going to stop tonight, because at the moment I feel like I'm getting my backside kicked a little bit with this weather, starting to put a bit of a damper on things, but I'm trying to stay positive. But yeah, the thought of camping in the wind and the rain just doesn't fill me with much joy, so I'll stay here for a little bit and decide what to do.
I made myself a warm drink before leaving again. There are many buildings left open in the Hebrides like this, which shows how little crime or vandalism there is in the Isles.
It's so windy here, they even need to use ratchet straps to keep the roof on their sheds.
So I'm taking refuge in Laverborough Church because I knew it'd be open. using the heater to dry my socks. Till I plot my next move, just hiding from the rain. Oh, pretty tired actually. Could probably sleep in here. But I'm going to make some food in here and then decide what to do. So this is like a little community room, I suppose. There's the actual church. I came in the door down there. Nice wee church. Seems very old. There's another door. Toilet. Nice views if the weather was better. That's a storage room. And then get this. It's even got a little kitchen.
I made the most of the kitchen facilities to boil myself some water, then sat down to enjoy a nice meal.
It's 9:30. The wind and rain have both stopped. It's turned to a nice evening in Loch Maddie. But I've decided I'm going to stay in here. It's warm, it's dry, there's electricity, there's a toilet, there's running water, and I'm getting up very early anyway. I've been here about 5 hours now. Well, 4 hours. I can't be bothered moving, so I've made myself a bed.
I settled down for the night and prayed that the church wasn't haunted. The next morning, I got all my stuff ready and left no trace, taking all my rubbish out with me.
So that white building is where I stayed last night. It's going to be a good day, I think. Hopefully. Day 5 on the Hebridean Way. So I've just come over the moors on this section. Quite a nice morning. Great views for once. First time I've had good visibility on this whole trip. I was looking forward to keeping my feet dry today, but that's obviously not happening. The Crocs are back on. I was sick of trying to dodge all the big wet areas, so decided to just put my Crocs on, crack on. Jeez, it's very boggy.
After escaping the dreaded bog, I was grateful to be able to put my dry shoes back on.
Hector, son of Murdoch. Great surname, to be fair. The local community has taken over the phone box. It's now called Stop at the Box. Drinks, treats and plants. There's a little honesty box in there. You can help yourself to a can of juice for the road. White sandy beaches and turquoise coloured water.
There's something incredibly calming about being able to stand on a rock and look out over the ocean. It brings me a great sense of joy. I couldn't stare into the ocean for too long because I had a ferry to catch and I hadn't yet reached the ferry terminal.
It's official. I'm an idiot. I got here in good time today, thinking I would get the ferry at 12 from Berneray to Leverborough to continue the trail, but I read the wrong timetable. The ferry I need doesn't run at 12 on a Tuesday, the next one is at 2:30. So I've got the best part of 3 hours, well, 2.5 hours to kill, so I think I'll just eat some food and then maybe go for a little walk. Or just sit on my backside in here because I am quite tired, so I might just do that instead.
I took the couple of hours that I had to have a cup of tea, air my socks and my shoes, and before I knew it, I was boarding the ferry. Immediately after getting off the boat, I went to the shop to restock. It was still early in the day, so I bought myself a paper to help pass the time. Then I had a better idea.
It's 10:20, and look how bright it is. But still, I'm going to try and get some sleep. Busy day tomorrow. Bit of a stealth camp last night. Just get everything packed away. Early start this morning, because today, on day 6 in the Hebridean Way, I'm going to St Kilda. So there'll not be much walking today. Although when I get back at about 7 PM, I'm going to do about 16 kilometres, but we'll cover that later. St Kilda, let's go!
There is no place like St Kilda. Towering out of the storm-tossed waters of the Atlantic Ocean, its cliffs and sea stacks clamour with the cries of hundreds of thousands of seabirds. St Kilda is a remote archipelago in the North Atlantic and is part of the Outer Hebrides. It was once home to a small, self-sufficient community but was abandoned in 1930 due to harsh conditions and a declining population.
St Kilda is incredible. You've got the bay down there with the village and the blue waters, the blue skies. You come this way, you've got the highest sea cliffs in the British Isles, and if you pan that way, you've got another part of the Isles over there. Unbelievable.
Although there are no longer permanent residents, there is a temporary population, typically between 20 and 70 people during the summer months. This includes staff from the Ministry of Defence, the National Trust for Scotland, and scientific researchers, often studying the local wildlife.
I've got to be mindful of the edge because you only fall off one of these cliffs once, and that's you, done, dead as a dodo.
I soon made my way to the highest point on the island, Conacher Hill. The views were just incredible. I was amazed that people lived on St Kilda for so long. I could begin to imagine what it must have been like for them in the winter. The St Kildan's lifestyle was shaped by isolation, unpredictable weather and scarce resources. They lived on seabirds including fulmars, puffins and gannets, and harvested bird meat alongside bird eggs. They also kept a hardy native breed of sheep called soy sheep, which were used for meat, wool and sometimes milk. Barley and potatoes were grown on the island, and fish and shellfish supplemented their diet. The church and manse represent an important chapter in St Kilda's long history, one which saw revolutionary changes to the unique way of life that had evolved there. Daily life for St Kildans was similar to elsewhere in the Hebrides. They were Christian, spoke Gaelic, kept sheep and cows, grew cereals and vegetables, and fished, but their remote location resulted in some unusual customs. From the 18th century, ministers or missionaries were sent to the islands on a more regular basis, and a visiting minister in the early 19th century felt that they were ignorant of the leading truths of Christianity. A church and manse were built in the early 19th century for a resident minister, and there was a school from 1884. Today, the church and the manse and schoolroom have been restored, and visitors can see how they might have looked in the 1920s. The museum, which is on the island, brings to life the story of St Kilda's natural wonders, its history and its people. The displays also include pottery, textiles, agricultural implements, dress and personal items, all associated with the community and visitors to the islands. I was happy to be in the sunshine. It made a welcome change from the wind and the rain that I had experienced so far on my time in the Hebrides. I took some time to explore the island, walking through all the houses, immersed myself in the history of the place. Before long, it was time to get back on the boat and head back over the ocean to where we had come from. On the way back, we stopped at some of the sea stacks which form part of St Kilda. They were also very impressive.
So I'm not long back from St Kilda, and what an experience. I'm so glad I paid and took more or less a rest day from the trail to go there. It is incredible. Probably my favourite place I've been in Scotland so far. Yeah, fantastic. So now I'm going to walk up the road to a campsite because there's a shower and I really want a shower. So I'm going to put a podcast on, crack on and walk in the lovely evening sun. It doesn't get dark till about 10:30, so I've plenty of daylight. It shouldn't take me too long to get there. What a night. It's beautiful out here, still, calm, lovely. And I'm making good progress, which is even better. We had a campsite in no time. I can't get over how incredible it looks with the sun setting here. It's perfectly still and calm for once. And the beach down there, just amazing.
Before long, I had arrived at the campsite. I picked a great spot towards the sun finally set before I got into my tent and called it a night.
Day 7 on the Hebridean Way. I'm up early, had a nice sleep, nice shower at that campsite last night. So now I'm keen to crack out the miles before the rain and the wind comes in, because it's meant to be really bad later. So it's another case of head down, stomping on. This bit reminds me of Scandinavia, Norway, Sweden, that type of vibe. Finland, although mind you, I've not been to Norway or Finland, so maybe I'm completely wrong. Sheeped in some rock climbing, quite impressive really, as I approach a very damp and dreich looking tarbert, and it is still raining.
After treating myself, I headed to the local hostel where I was able to dry my kit. Harbour didn't present too many opportunities to camp, so I wasn't too mad that I was in a hostel again. Another day on the trail drew to a close. I knew that when I woke up tomorrow I was approaching the end, as I would only have 2 more days of walking to go. I hoped I would get some nice weather.
Day 8 on the Hebridean Trail. Look, there's a nice waterfall. It's the highlight of the day. So as you can see and hear, the conditions are bleak, but we continue on in the hopes of reaching the end. Just seeking shelter in a bus stop. I can't believe this is the weather here in June, in summer. Look at the roof. It's just mad. It's like a winter's day. Aline Community Woodland. It's nice to see some trees. It doesn't feel right going hiking and not seeing any trees, but on Outer Hebrides there's very little in the way of trees because it's too exposed. So yeah, it's nice to see a bit of a forest. I've been walking all damn day on the Hebridean Way. Everything is grey. It would have been better coming in May. So the woodland has this little daytime shelter, but I think you could camp in there. Especially if it's blustery outside, it'd be perfect. Although this looks more promising. The sign says, "This door is never locked. Push hard to open." Oh. Oh, you can hang my stuff up to dry. There's a toilet.
I unpacked all my gear and made myself comfortable. I knew I wouldn't be going further on the hike today, and this is where I would spend the night. There was even a book, although after 2 pages I decided it was a load of guff and didn't read any more. It was nice to be dry and watching the rain from inside for once. I made myself a cup of tea to pass the time, followed by another one. All that sitting down drinking tea had made me hungry, so after that it was time for dinner.
Hot chocolate, Cadbury, dairy milk, fruit and nut, and a view of some trees.
I made myself a little sleeping area and then climbed into my sleeping bag. Tomorrow was the last day, so I was excited to get up and finish the route. I packed up and set off early, ready to tackle the final stretch.
Day 9 on the Hebridean Way. That was a nice little hut that I stayed last night. I'm glad I found that. It's nice to be in the shelter. As you can see, still very grey here. Not raining though, so I shouldn't complain. And there's no wind today, so I think the walking will be far more enjoyable. Got 20 miles to go till I get to the end. Then I'll be done. The end point is Stornoway, so it's going to be another day of plodding on. But it's nice when it's the final day because you don't feel you need to worry about finding somewhere to camp or whatever. So you can just go at a leisurely pace. And even if you get wet, you know that this is the last day and you'll not be hiking tomorrow, so it doesn't really matter.
The Prince's Cairn is a memorial which marks both the landing of Prince Charles Edward Stuart in July 1745 and his departure from Scotland in the following September 1746.
Sure, it's good views on a clear day. 360 panoramic views of all the hills. Not today though.
I stopped in at a community centre on the way past to refuel. Inside, there was lots of interesting information about the various standing stones located on the Hebrides, but unfortunately the Hebridean Way doesn't go past them, so I didn't get to see them in person.
You see a lot of that in the Outer Hebrides, and I've seen a lot of it especially on Lewis. Just houses seemingly abandoned. You know, nice little bit of land that probably comes with it. There's another abandoned building up there, just left to seemingly rot. It's a shame. Once upon a time someone probably lived there and took great pride in their house, you know.
The road ahead appeared long, so I made sure to stop and fill up on some sugary juice to give me the energy I needed to continue. I also inspected my shoes, which I think at this point needed replaced. They'd seen better days.
I've seen a few of these today. I don't know if they're old bus stops or what, but they look like they belong in Soviet era Russia, the USSR. We're approaching the end. 5 kilometres or so to go. And I'm excited to finish.
Soon I reached the outskirts of Stornoway, and I knew that I would soon be at the end. I continued along the path towards the end point, but I did stop to admire this absolute unit of a tree. I think it was the biggest tree I'd seen on the Hebrides.
Well, that's me finished the Hebridean Way after 9 days of walking. As you can imagine, I'm quite tired. Going to grab myself a shower, get some warm food, get the ferry home in the morning. But yeah, I have enjoyed it though. It's been a good route. It's just a shame about the weather. But if I ever come back to the Hebrides, I'll come back in May. So apparently that's when you get the sunshine.